Hi, everyone, and welcome to the Fringe North podcast. My name is Caitlin Townsend. My pronouns are she and her, and I am the project coordinator for this year's Fringe Festival. And I have with me here today Vanessa. Vanessa, would you like to take a moment to just introduce yourself and chat a little bit about what your festival submission is this year?
Yeah, I'm from Wickham Unceded Territory. I'm 44 years old and an empty nester, and um, my submission this year is a really intense little piece. It's not even 5 minutes long, and it's the focus is on depression and um, how we are inside our heads, like people that suffer the illness. It's kind of like the very darkness that we feel inside the head. I don't.
Hmm. That sounds really beautiful and like a great thing to dive into. As someone who has experienced depression myself over the years, I think it's really needed. So I'm curious as to how this project came about and what inspired you to create this project.
I participated in a workshop with Adrian Simpson and Lori Blondeau. They're from Alberta, and they did a workshop on performance art. And performance art is a um, theater. Sorry, it's a performance where you want to bring something to sorry, if you want to bring something to um like bring awareness to like any kind
Hmm.
of issues or anything, like whatever topic you want. And I did this like live with an audience at the time, like at the end of the week workshop. And yeah, it was really intense doing it live, and then everybody was so they felt my pain that
Hmm.
everybody hugged me at the end of the performance. It was really powerful. So I really wanted to bring this more aware. So I thought, why don't I do it on video with the Fringe Festival?
Oh, that's really beautiful. So the piece is very personal to you then, it sounds like, if I'm that's exciting.
Yes,
And
yeah, yeah, it's a very personal because I have suffered the illness since I was around 13 years old.
wow. Yeah, and having gone through that, especially at such a young age, and I can relate because my depression started fairly young as well. Uh, how do you see your art has, I guess, like a what led you to the art space in particular into addressing these issues in that space? Because obviously, like with depression, there's a lot of different routes we can take with it too, and to kind of, uh, I think you worded it like share your pain essentially with those. So, uh, what inspired you to take that art route specifically with your depression?
Um, Specifically, like the performance itself. Well, or sorry, when somebody asks like how it feels when you're in that that depressive state, or when it's like at its highest, it's really hard to explain to people what exactly you're going through in your mind.
Mhm.
All the negative self-talk, all it's just so negative and it's so dark, and it's like it's really hard to explain. So the performance is it doesn't have to explain it because it's just that's what it is.
Yeah. So kind
Like
of, sorry, go ahead.
no, I can't remember what I was gonna say.
So-
Sorry.
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. Uh, so kind of that like showing people what depression is rather than like trying to tell it or put it into words. Is that a fair way of saying it?
Yes, exactly.
Yeah,
Yes.
that's awesome. Yeah. So with being an artist as well, and like I know you do other forms of art too, so I'm just curious as to what sparked your journey to become an artist and to head into the artistic space.
It was actually it was a fluke. I was 19 years old. I took a I mean I applied for a job that was posted in my community with the Botchamajig Theater, and I thought, okay, well, it'll be fun to work in a theater company, but I was thinking in the back, like backstage because like I have stage fright. Well, like when I was a kid, I would do like a not performance, but like a sorry, when you would do a like a report in front of the class, I couldn't do that.
Mhm.
So when I was 19 and I took this job, I thought it was backstage, but first day of work, it was like, no, you guys are doing improv. And we were like a group of 12 youth and we did improv all throughout Manitoulin Island. So that just, and then it just sparked from there. It was like, I got over my shyness. It changed my life. It gave me a voice. I was this quietest, shyest person. And that's why I want to do theater for youth in my future to give them a voice. So that's why.
Well, that's so exciting and so beautiful. And that's like being thrown into improv. It's kind of like jumping right into the water rather than having to like dip a toe in, and it just like pushes you right in. So that's really exciting. Um, so I'm curious too, with everything being digital now and kind of like you say that it kind of helped you get over your shyness, but as someone who comes from like that shyer, more reserved background of not wanting to be on stage and then kind of getting over it, but in the digital sphere, do you actually find it a little bit simpler when you're creating digital projects versus being on stage in a theater, or how do you find the differences there?
I love the stage. I love the rush of having to do it live. There's no second takes. There's no so I actually found doing it digitally is very hard because because you judge yourself a lot. So it's like you hear your voice, you see how you're performing, and you're like, oh my God, I could do better than that. Like, but when you're on stage, you don't have that.
Hmm.
So it was really different, and it was really difficult. That last year's video, I don't know how many times I did my voiceover so many times.
Yeah, I'm definitely the same way in terms of like that perfectionist mindset kicks in, and you can like when it's live, you have to just like, even if you know you messed up at some point, you just have to keep going. Whereas like digital, we're forever perfecting, and like it's never really done, I guess. Yeah.
Yeah.
So this particular piece for the submission this year is you've actually done like a stage version of it, you had shared before. So I'm wondering, how did you find the process of transferring that into digital? Um, and like I guess what's coming up a lot with artists this year is uh, keeping the heart of theater in the digital sphere versus like creating like a film project, right? Because those are two like different things. So I'm wondering how you found that process and what stood out for you has you made like the creative choices that built the digital version compared to like the stage version?
Actually, it was pretty interesting because I had my daughter, my oldest daughter. She's the one that filmed it for me, and like she was my camera person. And she told me to write up a storyboard before we so she knew what I was looking for. So I had this whole storyboard, and it ended up not even going through what the storyboard was. So because I had all these ideas of what I wanted to put in it, and each kind of like scene, and then it in the end, I just wanted the performance to speak for itself. So I don't even it's pretty much like as if I was in, like there's hardly any editing. It's like it's my performance. And I decided I just wanted the performance to speak for itself and not put in all this other extra stuff that I was gonna.
Mm. Yeah, so kind of like refining things down to a final project rather than um, adding like all these extra layers. Is that
Yeah.
a fair way of saying? Yeah.
Yeah. Like when it's shown, it's gonna be like you're watching me on stage.
Mhm.
There's no like there was no take one, take two or anything like that. It was just like, okay, I did the performance. I think I did it twice and then I was like, hey, the second one was good. That's it.
That's awesome. Yeah.
I love the stage. So yeah, it was really difficult imagine like how I imagined it on film. Totally like I totally it didn't happen that way.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's fair. A lot of people are finding that as we create like digital versions to um, that rawness of doing it in like a couple takes rather than trying to create like a more edited version. It just has a different feel to it than compared to like when you're on stage, you only have that one take. So yeah. So how did you find out about Fringe North and what got you involved in the festival this year?
I participated with a program uh, with Sarah Garchor, and sorry, I'm really blanking on the
The,
other.
was that with Adam as well, I think?
Yeah, Adam.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. So I participated last year. So I submitted a short video last year with them as a group, and um, it was really different last year too. Like the what I submitted. Sorry. And this year, we were invited back because we were part of that program last year, and I'm totally drawing a blank with the program.
Project Mission, I think it was.
Yeah, Project Mission. Oh my goodness. Yeah, so I'm just really grateful that I got to participate again this year, and yeah, it's been a journey because of everything that I've been going through the last couple of years. Um, for me to share this, especially with people going through a lot of mental health issues through the pandemic, like I just think it's really important, and like a lot of our communities, in our First Nations, there's a lot of suicide. There's been so much pain in our communities, and I think it's really important to bring that awareness as well during this time.
Yeah, I definitely agree. And it's so like sometimes people are afraid to talk about those topics, right? So it's something that like really needs to be addressed rather than like beating around the bush, which we can tend to do sometimes. So I was really excited when I read your description of your project and for your own knowledge as well. Like I work as a life coach practitioner in my other job, so I do have a background with mental well-being and helping people through difficulties. Um, so I have a question that's a little bit cultural specific because you do come from an Indigenous background. And so just so for your own knowledge of where this is coming from, I specialize as a spiritual development coach as well. And I do have a lot of clients who are of Indigenous background. And one thing that comes up often as we're working through things is, and you can probably share a little bit more to viewers as well, because my knowledge, I'm still learning, and so my knowledge is very, very limited, and I admit that. So there's an importance with viewing the
Sorry.
next, it's okay. There's an importance with sharing resources for the next 7 generations, right? And having that long-term mindset of leaving things behind for generations to come and to really have that like long-term mindset. Um, and so with that in the mental wellness space, often like as we're working through these different things like PTSD and depression, we can often like we gain wisdom and experience and knowledge that can be passed on, and we develop kind of like these tools that become resources for others to uh, to work through their own. Everyone's like experience with depression is a little different, so I don't want to say they're like a one size fits all, but there's definitely like resources there that we develop as we're going through this. And so I'm wondering if as you're creating, because essentially like art is a resource in and of itself, right? And it can help people through, like I know when I was suicidal, music like saved my life, and having the different art that was in my life was definitely a huge resource for me. So as you're creating these projects that do dive into these heavier topics of like depression and PTSD, is that something that you keep in mind in terms of, and how does that shape your creative process if you do, in terms of like thinking long term and how it can become a resource for others and impact, and how can we as artists start to cultivate that communal long-term mindset as we create art?
Excuse me. um, excuse me. Sorry. I don't know why my voice just went away there for a second.
It's like,
um, so as an artist, as an Indigenous artist, we're our people are natural storytellers. So it's how we tell our stories, and we've done that for many many generations. And I think bringing forefront to youth storytelling and our personal experiences to bring awareness to next generations, and not to hide things anymore. Because, like, when I first had depression, like, I didn't know I had depression until I was 19. And I raised three children on my own. I was a single mom raising three children, and I never once told my kids, like, that I was suffering this illness. They just thought mom was always tired and lazy. Maybe they thought I was lazy, because it wasn't until they were adults that I had told them that I suffered depression. And um, I wish I didn't do that. I wish I had told them when they were younger. So it's really important so they can understand that if they're going through something, it's okay to talk about it. So I think, if I'm correct me if I'm wrong, if I'm not answering it properly. So, like, and that's how we start to change the down the line, the generations of the intergenerational trauma that we suffer in, by me speaking out. And down the line, starting with my children, they will know that what it is, and then if they suffer, and then their children, and so forth. I don't know if that
Yeah.
made sense.
It makes sense. So it's like giving it a voice, and like showing the next generation that they can address it, rather than, because obviously, like, when we hide things and they're not brought to the light, we can't really address them, right? So it's like bringing it out into the open and kind of uh, providing them with like the resource to know that that's okay, and that that's um, encouraged, and to and like I really liked, at the end of your description, you had just like the simple sentence of like, you are not alone, and that phrase, for those who are going through depression, is huge. So I think that that's really important.
Yeah, for
Yeah.
sure. That's how most of the times we feel, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
When we're going through those stages, and it's just yeah. And a lot of the times, that's what I have to mentally tell myself when I'm going through a tough week or a tough day. Is like, at the end of I have to continually to tell myself I'm not alone. I have my family that love me. I have my children and my friends. And so that's something, like, you constantly have to tell yourself in your head, like, yeah. And
Yeah.
I just really want to be able to, especially with, like, I'm not saying any generation's different, but with our youth, and with suicides that are happening in our communities, I just think it's so important for them to know that they're not alone, and
Mhm.
that they're loved.
Yeah, it's so important, and I think, like, the number one thing with suicide is that because you feel so alone, like, that's it, like, the second you don't feel alone in it, even if you're feeling like the weight of it, you're far less likely to actually, like, see it through as well. um, so I think that that's so important. I'm wondering, like, from your side of things, being an artist in this space and, like, diving into these deep topics, uh, because it is like a little bit of a responsibility, I guess, and like you're stewarding it really well, and wanting to impact the younger generation in specific. But do you ever find it difficult, for yourself to dive into these things, or like does it? I guess there's two sides, I guess. So does it, like, is it more of a healing experience, and it helps you actually work through these things, or is there ever times when it gets like hard or difficult to be diving into these topics?
I would say, like, maybe 10 years ago it would have been really hard to do this, um, as, like, but now, it was very therapeutic for me to do this, and to be open about it, and, to just be to be very vulnerable and very raw about, like, about this, and to share that. It was really, it did help me in a lot of ways, because um even, like, so I had two little cousins help me that day. Well, one little cousin, well, I mean, my niece helped me, and my little cousin was there, and they're only like 8, 9 years old. And I had to explain to them before they seen the performance, what they were going to see, and I didn't want them to get worried, if they, like, I didn't want them to get scared, and that Auntie was okay. and not to be scared. And I explained to them what depression was and what I was doing. And it was really, they were like, it was really, I wasn't sure on how to tell an 8-year-old what I was like, if they came and seen it live, like, I don't know if they would know what was going on. They'd be like, so the fact that I was able to share that with them and then, and them to watch it, it was like, they've been asking me since they're waiting for their final video.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Um, yeah. I don't know if I answered your question. Sorry.
No, yeah, I think you did. Yeah. And I think it's so important to give the younger generation terminology because you had shared earlier you had depression when you were 13, but you didn't know until 19 what it was. So to actually uh, give it a name so that people know what they're experiencing can be powerful so that they actually know how to get through it themselves if they ever do experience it. So starting very young, I think, is very important. So what do you hope that festival viewers get from your project and what do you hope that they take away from having watched it?
I'm hoping that um, they'll look at people like, or not people, no, they'll hope they'll understand that this is an actual illness. It's not something that you can get over. It's not something that like, that it's a lifelong illness, and it's really, um, I just want them to know that it's not, it's, I don't know, the stigma of it, right? Like mental
Mhm.
health and the stigma of it is just like people think when you're sad, one day, and they just think like, get up and get over it. And they don't understand it's hard. It's hard.
Yeah.
And I just want people to know that like, to not judge and to be gentle and to be understanding, I guess. Like,
Mhm. Yeah.
not to have that, like, even like when you start a new job, or even junior job, you might be going through something, and you're too scared to tell your work. And if you do tell your work, you're like, oh, if I tell them, then I'm gonna be like, they're gonna look at me different. They're gonna think I can't do my job, and whatnot. And so a lot of people suffer this illness in silence because they don't want to be ostracized and they don't want to be, um, looked at differently. So I want to be able to let the viewers know that, to see what this is, and be sensitive about it, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, and to have like a deeper understanding of where people who do who are working through depression, like where they're coming from, rather than putting that like label of judgment on it, to actually understand and to come alongside and then be able to support in a more holistic sense, I think.
Yeah. Excuse
Yeah.
me. Yes.
So I am just noticing the time and we are running out of time. So is there anything that you want viewers to know or that you would like to address before we sign off?
Um, I guess, just like I put in my little blurb, that if you do suffer it, don't be afraid to reach out for help. And there's resources out there to that you can access. Counseling is not taboo, even, yeah. So I just want viewers to, seek help if you need it.
Yeah, yeah, that's
You're not
awesome.
alone.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much, Vanessa, for coming on today, and thank you for being willing to be vulnerable and to share your experiences and to dive into these topics. And I think it's really needed and appreciative. So miigwech for that. It's yeah, I think not enough people are willing to address it. So I think it's really important for our society that you're doing that. Um,
Yeah. Like, I mean,
for
you're welcome.
for viewers watching, the festival is running from August 19th to the 22nd with a sneak preview on the 18th. And Vanessa's project will be part of our opening ceremony, which is free on YouTube. So you can come and watch it. And yeah, we hope to see you all at the festival. Have a great day. Thank you for watching. Merci, miigwech, and gracias. We'll see you all again soon. Bye. Thank you for watching our podcast. Merci, miigwech, gracias. If you like what we're doing, you can support Fringe North and the artists involved in this year's festival financially so that we can continue this work. Visit www.fringenorth.ca to find out more.